My younger sibling fabricated a story about having an affair with my wife, and my parents chose to believe him, cutting me off until the truth finally emerged 2 years later. It's challenging to know where to start, but I feel compelled to share this and perhaps find some clarity. I apologize if this comes off as a bit disjointed, there's just so much to unpack. I hope you can help me navigate through this because I truly feel lost. I'm 32 years old, and I've been married to the love of my life, Sarah, who is 36, for 8 wonderful years. We have 2 amazing kids, a 7-year-old son and a 5-year-old daughter. Life was nearly perfect. We had a cozy home, a stable routine, and a deep bond that I believed was unbreakable. Our days were filled with the usual ups and downs of family life, but overall, I couldn't have been happier. However, everything changed 2 years ago, thanks to my older brother, Mark. Mark is also 36, and while our lives began on similar paths, they have diverged significantly. His journey through relationships has been, to put it mildly, extremely tumultuous. Until recently, he had been single for quite some time, and there's a solid reason for that. As much as it pains me to admit, Mark has a tendency to be a red flag in the dating world. His behavior can only be described as that of a classic narcissist. He often sabotages his relationships, pushing people away with his erratic and manipulative tendencies. Mark's relationships always seem to start off well enough, but they never last. He has this way of becoming too intense too quickly, and then things begin to unravel. I've witnessed it happen repeatedly. He'll meet someone, they'll start dating, and then he'll pick fights over trivial matters or become so possessive that the woman feels suffocated. Before long, it's over, and he's left wondering why he can't find someone who will stick around. It's painful to watch, especially since Mark often takes his frustrations out on me. He would come over to vent about how he couldn't find a woman like Sarah, and it was clear there was a lot of resentment there. He'd say things like, "Even you found someone, why can't I find a woman like Sarah?" I tried not to take offense because I knew he was struggling, but it was hard not to feel like his words were a jab at me. Despite everything, I still love my brother. I've always hoped he would find the woman of his dreams and finally be happy. I even tried to set him up with a friend of Sarah's once, thinking they might be a good match, but Mark's strange and off-putting behavior quickly ended that idea. He was so intense and controlling that I realized it wasn't worth risking my friendship over him. Yet, I continued to hope that Mark would eventually find happiness. Unfortunately, it became painfully clear that Mark didn't feel the same way about me. 2 years ago, Sarah and I were celebrating our 6th wedding anniversary with a big family barbecue at our parents' house. It had been a while since the whole family had gathered, and everyone was having a fantastic time. Our kids were playing with their cousins, and the atmosphere was filled with laughter and joy. It was one of those rare moments where everything felt perfect, surrounded by the people I loved most. As the evening progressed, Mark pulled me aside. At first, I thought he was going to offer me a heartfelt anniversary wish. He congratulated me, and I thanked him, surprised by his genuine tone. I asked him what he had been up to lately, knowing he had a new girlfriend, but instead of the casual chat I expected, Mark's demeanor shifted. He looked at me with an unsettling intensity, and the next words out of his mouth caught me completely off guard. He claimed that after Sarah and I got married, they had an affair behind my back. Initially, I thought it was some twisted joke and even laughed, but Mark was dead serious. He said that after the wedding, Sarah started texting him, and what began as innocent messages soon turned into deep emotional conversations. According to Mark, Sarah confided in him that we were constantly fighting over trivial matters and eventually asked if they could meet, which is when the affair supposedly began. His words left me feeling sick. The thought of Sarah, who had always been devoted to me and our family, being unfaithful was unfathomable. Mark claimed he had kept this a secret all this time but could no longer pretend. The way he presented it so calmly and confidently shook me to my core, even more than the actual news. For a moment, I started to think of all the scenarios. Did Sarah really cheat on me, and with my brother? Were we supposed to separate? Mark had a habit of leaving his belongings scattered around the apartment and then questioning Sarah about whether she had brought other men over. This would escalate into screaming matches, and when Sarah was finally exhausted, he would reveal that it was all just a test. This incident only confirmed a pattern I had seen in Mark, so I chose to believe my wife. What followed were the darkest days of my life. My parents refused to listen to our side of the story, opting instead to believe Mark's version without any evidence. Our once close-knit family was shattered. Sarah and I found ourselves isolated. The atmosphere during family gatherings became unbearable. My parents treated me with cold suspicion, and Sarah was outright ignored. Mark, on the other hand, seemed to thrive on the chaos he had created. He played the victim, soaking up the attention and sympathy from everyone around him. It was as if he relished the destruction he had caused in my life, and the more I tried to defend myself and Sarah, the more he twisted the narrative to paint us as the villains. I attempted to reach out to my parents to explain that there was no proof of Mark's claims, but it was futile. They had made up their minds, and their loyalty to Mark was unwavering. My mother even accused me of being in denial and of choosing Sarah over my own brother, which broke my heart. I couldn't comprehend how they could turn their backs on me so easily, how they could believe Mark's lies without question. Eventually, the tension reached a breaking point. Sarah and I made the painful decision to distance ourselves from my family for the sake of our mental health and our children's well-being. It was an incredibly difficult choice, but we couldn't continue living under the shadow of such a hurtful lie. After a while, this became our new normal. It was hard, but not impossible. I accepted that I didn't need my parents' approval for everything in my life. If they wanted to support Mark's lies, then so be it. Just when I thought the drama was finally behind us, something happened that stirred everything up again. Out of the blue, I stumbled upon a post on social media. Mark had gotten engaged. He had shared a series of pictures with his new fiancée, a woman named Emily, along with a long, sentimental caption about how he had met the love of his life. He went on to describe how Emily had come into his life during what he claimed was the hardest time he had ever faced, a time of pain and betrayal. The irony of those words made my stomach churn. The hypocrisy was astounding. Mark had painted himself as a victim, using the very lies he had told to garner sympathy and admiration from our extended family and friends. As I scrolled through the comments, I noticed that many of our relatives, who had mostly sided with him during the fallout, were congratulating him and offering their support. Some even made snarky, passive-aggressive remarks clearly aimed at me, saying things like, "Good for you for moving past that toxicity, you don't need that in your life." It was infuriating. These people had no idea what really happened, yet they were quick to applaud Mark for his supposed strength and resilience. I felt a familiar sense of betrayal, not just from Mark, but from the entire family that had chosen to believe his lies without question. It was as if they had completely erased me from their lives while continuing to support someone who had caused nothing but pain and destruction. What bothered me even more was the fact that Mark was now engaged to a woman who had no idea about the kind of person he truly was. I couldn't help but feel sorry for Emily, knowing she was being manipulated by the same lies that had torn my family apart. I wondered if Mark had ever told her the truth about what he had done, or if he had continued to spin his web of deceit to ensnare her as well. At first, I was tempted to reach out to Emily and warn her, to tell her about the kind of person Mark really was, but I quickly realized that it wasn't my place to interfere in their relationship. Emily would have to learn the truth on her own, just as I had. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that came with knowing Mark was once again manipulating those around him for his own benefit. In the days that followed, I tried to push the news of Mark's engagement out of my mind, but it wasn't easy. Suddenly, I started to notice a string of missed calls from an unknown number. At first, I thought it was just spam, so I didn't pay much attention to it, but the calls kept coming. I was busy with work and the kids, so I didn't have time to pick up. Finally, during a break at work, I decided to answer. What greeted me on the other end of the line was a furious Mark. Emily decided to check Mark's phone, and what she discovered shocked everyone. Mark had been cheating on her. He had been meeting up with a woman he met on a dating app, and let's just say their conversations were far from innocent. Emily, who was well off and seemingly perfect in Mark's eyes, was someone he wasn't willing to lose. Mark had no choice but to come clean. He confessed to Emily that there was no affair with Sarah and that it was all a story he had fabricated. However, instead of salvaging his relationship, his confession backfired. He didn't deny the chats with the girl on the dating app, and Emily was horrified not only by the affair but also by the lengths Mark had gone to maintain the facade. This revelation painted Mark in an even darker light, and Emily wanted nothing to do with him after that. In the aftermath of Emily calling off the engagement, Mark's life began to unravel. His lies were now public knowledge, and the very people who had once supported him started to distance themselves. The relatives who had been so quick to believe his story about Sarah and me now questioned everything. Their snarky comments and supportive messages vanished as they realized the depth of Mark's deception. My parents, who had so easily taken his side 2 years ago, were left reeling from the truth. They had been manipulated just like everyone else, and now they had to face the consequences of their blind faith in Mark's lies. Now, all of my family is trying to reconcile with Sarah and me. Even after everything that has happened, there's a part of me that feels guilty. Maybe it's because, in my anger and hurt, I haven't spoken to Mark or my parents since the engagement was called off. I didn't reach out to see how Mark was doing after Emily left him. He's my brother, and despite everything, I still feel responsible for his well-being. I know he brought this on himself, but it's hard to shake the feeling that I should have done more, even if it was just a simple check-in. Another part of me feels guilty for keeping my children away from their grandparents. They don't know the full story, of course, but they've started asking questions about why we don't visit Grandma and Grandpa anymore. They miss them, and it breaks my heart to see them so confused. But how can I expose them to people who sided with a lie that nearly destroyed our family? So, I'm left wondering if I was wrong for cutting my family off and not reaching out to Mark even after his engagement fell apart. Should I have done more to mend the broken relationships, or am I justified in keeping my distance to protect myself and my family? Update: Hi everyone, how are you? It's been a while since the whole ordeal with Mark and Emily, and while things have mostly returned to normal, there's still some tension that I can't seem to shake. After the truth came out and Mark's engagement was called off, I thought we'd finally be able to move on. But now it seems like everyone in my family is trying to reach out to us, as if they suddenly realized the gravity of what they believed and the damage it caused. My aunts and cousins, who were quick to take Mark's side when he accused Sarah of cheating, have started calling and texting me regularly. They're all expressing their regret for doubting Sarah and me, saying things like, "We should have known better," or "We never should have believed it without hearing your side." Part of me wants to believe their sincerity, but another part feels like it's too little, too late. Where were they when we needed their support? My parents, of course, have been the most persistent. They've been calling and leaving voicemails almost every day, and it's clear they're desperate to reconcile. They've even shown up at our house a couple of times unannounced, but Sarah and I didn't answer the door. I finally picked up my mom's call once, thinking maybe I was ready to hear her out, but the first thing she said was how much she missed her grandchildren and how she couldn't wait to see them again. That really hit a nerve. The fact that her primary concern was seeing our kids rather than acknowledging the pain Sarah and I went through because of her blind belief in Mark's lies angered me. It felt like she was more interested in getting back what she lost, her relationship with our children, than truly making amends for the hurt they caused. In the meantime, I received a message from Emily, Mark's ex-fiancée, through social media. I was a bit surprised to hear from her, but we ended up having a nice chat. Emily was incredibly apologetic about everything that happened, expressing her regret for not speaking up sooner when Mark made his accusations. She told me that she had sensed something. Emily was still processing everything, and I sympathized with her. After all, she was another victim of Mark's manipulations. Interestingly, while my family has been trying to reconnect with us, Mark has gone completely missing in action. After the big reveal at the engagement party, he seemed to dig himself into an even deeper hole. He tried to throw out more wild accusations, claiming that I had cheated on Sarah and that she had always secretly wanted him instead. But honestly, by that point, no one was listening. It was as if everyone had finally seen through his lies and manipulations. I wasn't even surprised by the things he said anymore. Instead, I felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, I was upset and sad for Mark because it was clear he needed serious help. No sane person would continue down this path of self-destruction. On the other hand, I felt a sense of relief that my wife was being seen as a cheater and I as a foolish man. Despite the guilt and sorrow I feel for my brother, I know that the best thing for my family right now is to keep our distance from all this toxic drama. We've been through enough, and I need to focus on protecting my wife, my children, and myself from further harm. I'm grateful for the clarity that has come out of all of this, even if it's been incredibly painful to get here. I also want to thank everyone who took the time to read my story and offer their support and suggestions. It's been a difficult journey, but the kindness and understanding I've received from strangers have made it a little easier to bear. I am thankful to you all for helping me see things more clearly and giving me the strength to do what's best for my family. Update 2. Hi everyone, this past week has been incredibly rocky, so my family and I decided to take a much-needed mini vacation. It was a good way to clear our minds and focus on each other after everything that's happened. I also took some time to go through all of your comments on my previous posts, and I just want to say thank you. Your insights and support have really given me a better perspective on this whole situation. One thing that really stood out to me was the number of comments about Mark's strange obsession with Sarah. Now that you all have pointed it out, I can see that there were always signs, but I just didn't connect the dots back then. When Sarah and I first started dating, Mark had a lot to say about it, more than I realized at the time. He would always call her smart and beautiful, which seemed like harmless compliments, but they were often followed by comments that now feel a bit off, like how I managed to get her or how she was so out of my league. I shrugged it off as his usual teasing, but looking back, there might have been more to it. Anyway, moving forward, I have to mention that my parents have not stopped trying to contact us. They've given us hundreds of calls and texts, and while I'm still angry about what happened, I've decided to let them visit us. I know their primary motive is to see the kids, and I've come to terms with that. After everything, I've realized that I won't deprive my children of their grandparents, even if I'm not ready to fully reconcile with them myself. The truth is, while my parents may not have been the best at supporting me, they've always been loving grandparents, and my kids adore them. The visit isn't going to be easy, and I'm still not sure how I'll handle seeing them face to face after all that's happened, but for the sake of my children, I'm willing to give it a try. I'll make sure to set boundaries and protect my own mental health, but I can't deny the bond they share with their grandparents. Hopefully, this visit will provide some clarity on how to move forward from here. Thank you again for all your support and advice. I'll keep you posted on how things go. Update 3. Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I wanted to give you all an update on how things have been since my last post. My parents did end up visiting us, and while I was nervous about how it would go, I have to say it was better than I expected. Things were awkward at first, as I had anticipated, but my kids quickly broke the ice. They were beyond happy to see their grandparents again, and their excitement helped lift the tension in the room. It was clear they had missed them just as much as my parents had missed them. As we settled in, the kids, in their innocent way, asked where Uncle Mark was. It was a question I knew would come up eventually, and it brought a moment of uncomfortable silence. We all kind of avoided the topic at the time.